Right, what I've got to do today is sort out a diff, a limb slip diff for the car. The car has actually got one in it at the moment. It's a 4.4 4-plate limb slip diff. I have been using it. It's in that one. The problem I'm having is when I'm going around a fast corner, fourth gear, it starts to spin a wheel up, and I thought it was the front anti-roll bar wasn't working properly. So, well, I didn't actually have a front anti-roll bar on it. So I presumed the front was digging in, going down, and all the weight was going forward, lifting the inside wheel, causing it to lift off the road and spin. But I now think it's, I put an anti-roll bar on to try it, didn't like it because I was getting a lot more understeer, and it was still spinning a wheel. So I think the diff is older than I thought it was when I bought it, and the plates are worn. It's 4-plate conversion, so replacing the plates, hopefully that will sort out. But what I'm going to do is, I could do another diff anyway, so I'm going to build this diff up with a 4-plate conversion, get the diff unit machined, start fitting. I'll just show you what I've got. That's the diff unit. So that's currently a 2-plate LSD out of an e36 medium case differential housing. I'm not sure what type of car. No idea what it's like, but it doesn't matter because it's worn out. So it's getting new plates, so it doesn't matter. Trouble with these diffs is they're ranging from 400 to, I've seen them going for £750. They're getting very, very expensive. If you can get hold of them, they're only going to get harder to get hold of. And there seems to be a BMW tax at the moment, and everything's going up ridiculously quickly. This is a diff casing. It's an e30 325i diff casing. That I paid, well, that's what that you pay £100 for one of these if you can get them. They're only going to go up in cost as well. This is the crown wheel and pinion. That's 4.4. They made it on, I don't know, very few cars, very rare, very hard to get hold of. I bought a car that had one in, very lucky. But to buy one, they're ranging from, I think you can get them from about £200, and they'll go up to £750. I've seen them going for, which is a lot. The bearings, these ones are pretty, they're shot, but I'll go into that in a minute. For a set of bearings, you're talking £135 to £200. That'd be bearings and seals, right? These seals. Yeah, so the diff unit will need 4 new plates. They range from about £400 to £300 for those. So when you add it all up, diff unit, new plates, casing, crown wheel and pinion, bearings, you're up to £1,135, cheapest prices. So it goes upwards from there. So the diffs are getting very, very expensive. But bear in mind, when you buy a diff, when you're paying your 400 to 750, it's probably a 30-year-old diff. There's a good chance that the plates are going to be worn out. People have bought them from America. They seem to be cheaper over there, and that for some reason they seem to last a bit longer. I don't know if it's because the roads are straighter or the way they drive. I don't know, but this one is, yeah, I'm sure that's worn out. Now, what I've done is I bought a car which had a 4.4 medium case limited slip diff in it, but it wasn't a plate diff, it was a torsion type diff. So the diff unit was different to this. It had all cogs in it rather than the plates, and I didn't like it. What happens is it will spin a wheel if you're in a tight corner, your front end's going down. If it's on a camber, a tight corner, it will sit there spinning the wheel. If you lift the wheel, it will spin it. I prefer a plate diff. They just seem to grip a lot better. So I bought this diff, and when I took it out of the car, I bought the whole car. When I took the diff out, it had a 4-plate diff in it already. No, sorry, it had a torsion diff in it, but when I went to take torsion diff out because I was going to sell it, I didn't want it, there was lots of end play from the side-to-side movement. These bearings are angular taper bearings, and they sit in these housings which bolt to the side of the diff. And these housings have shims on, so when you're building them, you shim them up to make sure you've got the right amount of drag on the bearings. We'll go into this later on, probably another video, but the same with the pinion shaft. This has got a bearing at the bottom where the pinion gear is, and also there's a bearing in here at the top, which the top part sits into. So when you build the pinion shaft into here, this washer is actually a crush washer. So the more you tighten it, the more it crushes, which will put more preload onto the angular bearings. So when you're building it, you have to put it all together, make sure it's all well oiled, tighten the nut, which will push against the flange, which is here. That goes onto the prop, sits on there. You tighten that up, and then you have to get a certain size bar with a hole in it, and you have to create drag. You have to use a scale to turn the prop shaft joint, and you have to have a certain amount of drag on it. When you've got the right amount of drag, you know that the preload on your pinion is correct. Once you've done that, you can put your diff unit in and tighten the ends in to preload the unit, the diff unit bearings up, and then you have to do the same measurement on the top, but you have to have slightly more drag on it, so you can work out how they how much torsion, how much preload to get on the angular bearings. Once you've done that, then you have to make sure that the gears mesh correctly, and to adjust that, you move the shims about from one side to the other and do that. So, but we will get into that later. So, because I know that because this has so much end play on it, when I drain the oil, I don't know, this is part of the oil. It was like glitter. There was so eyes. I don't know if it's gone all rusty now, but that was just metal coming off the. You can still see the metal. That was the speed sensor. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, there's plenty of metal in there, and that's part of the oil in there. There's just loads and loads of metal in it. So because there was so much movement, the teeth weren't catching correctly on the crown and the pinion. Fortunately, they all look very good. You can see little bits of metal stuck in between them. So yeah, the bearings would be the things that have suffered. So I need to replace bearings, but I'm not paying £135 to £200 for a set of bearings. I've got rid of the casing off it, but that was an e30 diff. That's all the bits from it. I've got the pinion shaft with a good bearing on it, so I know it's good. It was out of a regularly serviced e36 2.8i automatic with 70,000 miles on it, and it had been a well looked after car. We've got a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit over here. It wouldn't have been worked hard. It was an open diff. That bearing, I'm sure, will be fine. So I've got to take that bearing off and swap it with this one. This one can go in the bin because it's just shot. I wouldn't want to use it because I've seen what came out of the diff. These two bearings are what came on this diff unit. I've I took these bearings off the other diff unit before I sold it and threw them away because I knew they'd be short. So these ones should be okay. What I have had to buy is a new crush washer for when I set up the preload, and a new top seal, which I think that was £15 and that was £5, so it wasn't a great deal. So I've got to take bits off this, put it on that. I've got to get the top bearing I left in the other casing, I think, and I think that's, I got rid of the casing because I had no need for it. I sent it to the dump, it was just getting in the way. So I might have to take this one apart, which is currently an open diff, which I just used on this car when I was making sure it was all right while I was getting, that diff was in another car. So this one, I know the bearings are all right, but it leaks. The front seal's gone, which isn't an issue because I'll just take it apart and I've got a spare casing then. I can always get another seal for the front, unless I come across the bearing that was in the front housing of the diff that I threw. So that's where I'm at with this diff. Hopefully I'll be able to buy 4-plate kit, which I'm still looking. There's Tranex is a company that make diffs to go in an Atlas axle. The plates on a Ford Atlas axle are the same as the BMW plates, but they seem to be a lot cheaper. So I can get 4 plates for a Tranex limited slip diff to go in an Atlas axle for, I think it's £170. To get BMW ones is about £300. So yeah, I'm just trying to work out, what I've got to do is take one of the plates out of here, measure it so that can be compared to the Tranex plates, and if they're the same size, that's the result.